arises in revolt. It is to assert a people's right to freedom, a flashpoint which marks the beginning of a national movement. Since earliest times, India was a country open to all cultures, and yet throughout the ages, she has maintained her essential identity and basic unity. As Jawaharlal Nehru has said, the past of India, with all its cultural variety and greatness, was a common heritage of all the Indian people, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, and others. It was in this spirit of tolerance that early in the 17th century, the British East India Company received permission from the Mughal Emperor to start a factory at Surat. By 1690, the British had gained a number of footholds in India, and their business had prospered because, as Brooke Adams puts it, possibly since the world began, no investment has ever yielded the profit reaped from Indian plunder. From these bridgeheads, the British started to spread inland through military conquest. And by the middle of the 19th century, they had occupied nearly 3/5 of India. The British compelled the rulers of many Indian states to conclude unequal treaties and made the rulers ineffective. They introduced the insidious doctrine of lapse. Whenever a ruler died without leaving a direct heir, the state was annexed by the British. By a series of annexations, they took over states such as Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur, and many more. Along with political expansion, there was legalized exploitation of the Indian masses, and the word loot became part of the English language. Soon Indian industries were destroyed. The craftsmen whose products once adorned the courts of Rome and Pompeii lost their means of livelihood. As Jawaharlal Nehru noted, British policy deliberately disintegrated the whole economic and structural basis of Indian society. Artisans and craftsmen were forced back to the villages, and even there, in the words of Lord Bentinck, the misery hardly finds a parallel in the history of commerce. The bones of the cotton weavers were bleaching the plains of India. At such a moment in history, the people of India were in turmoil and decided to fight the British. The British were not only enslaving the people of India, but were a threat to the cultural and religious life of her people. The chapati was used as a means of secret communication to spread the message of simmering discontent and to prepare the people for a revolution. At this time, Nana Sahib of Bithur was traveling to various capitals to seek help in organizing a united front against the British. In 1857, the British introduced cartridges greased with animal fat. These had to be bitten before loading the gunpowder. Since the sepoys were not told what type of fat it was, many refused to accept the cartridges on religious grounds. When the 19th Regiment stationed at Barrackpore near Calcutta refused to accept the cartridges, the unit was disbanded. The sepoys resented the high-handedness of the British authorities. According to British Army records, on the 29th of March, 1857, Mangal Pandey, a sepoy with 7 years' service in the 34th Regiment, moved up and down near the quarter guard and asked his comrades to defy the British.
जब हमारे मुसलमान भाई पूछते हैं ये कहते हैं स्वर की चर्बी नहीं है, मैं पूछता हूं आखिर किसकी चर्बी है? ये फिरंगी हम लोगों में फूट डालना चाहते हैं, हमारे धर्म और तहजीब को नष्ट करना चाहते हैं.
A British sergeant major rushed to the scene. He ordered Mangal Pandey to stop and asked Ishwari Pandey, an officer on duty, to arrest him. They ignored him. Mangal Pandey said, This is the time to strike.
हम लोग अब पीछे नहीं हट सकते। निकलो बाहर और इनको निकालें। निकलो भाइयों, हमारे साथ इनको निकालने के लिए।
A British lieutenant charged forward on his horse. Mangal Pandey shot the horse from under the officer. The colonel of the regiment ordered Mangal Pandey to be arrested. The soldiers disobeyed him. Pandey turned his gun on himself and fired. He was wounded. Mangal Pandey was arrested. After a court-martial, he was hanged. The news of Mangal Pandey's martyrdom travelled swiftly to various parts of the country. At Meerut, 85 out of 90 sawars of the 3rd Cavalry refused to accept the greased cartridges. They were disarmed and sent to prison. The Indian soldiers were furious at this insult to their comrades. On Sunday, the 10th of May, British soldiers and officers were attending church. Sepoys of the 3rd Cavalry seized weapons from guard rooms and stormed the jail to release their comrades. They attacked their British officers and burnt their houses. The sepoys of the 14th and 20th Regiment joined them. The revolutionaries then marched to Delhi. On the way, a large number of villagers joined them. They reached the Red Fort on the 11th of May 1857. The last of the Mughal kings, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was proclaimed Emperor of India.
मेरे हिंदू और मुसलमान भाइयों, आज हमने जो एक दूसरे का हाथ थामा है वो हमारे फर्ज का तकाजा है। मेरी दिली ख्वाहिश है कि फिरंगियों को हिंदुस्तान से बाहर निकाल दिया जाए, चाहे इसके लिए हमें कितनी ही कीमत क्यों न अदा करनी पड़े। ये बात न भूलो कि परवरदिगार की नेमतों में सबसे बड़ी नेमत आजादी है, आजादी।
On hearing this call, more sepoys from Meerut and other places flocked to Delhi. The occupation of Delhi by Indian soldiers was a tremendous blow to British prestige. The news of the uprising spread like wildfire. The British administration was virtually paralyzed. In their hearts, the people of India had never accepted British domination, and Indian soldiers had revolted against them 12 times even before 1857. The British authorities issued orders that anyone connected with the revolt was to be treated as a convict and deported to the Andamans for life. Many were given capital punishment. Some were hanged, some shot by musketry, and many more tied to guns and blown away. These are the ruins of the Residency in Lucknow, the source of British power after they deposed Wajid Ali Shah, the Nawab of Awadh, in 1856. The Residency was completely destroyed during an 8-month-long siege laid by Indian troops. On the 29th of June, the Indian soldiers advancing onto Lucknow defeated the British troops at Chinhat, a few miles outside Lucknow. British forces under Sir Henry Lawrence retreated to the Residency. Indian soldiers laid siege to the Residency and requested Begum Hazrat Mahal, the wife of the deposed king, to lead them. The Begum fought alongside the sepoys without regard to her personal safety. Several British attempts at relieving the hard-pressed Residency were defeated. The British suffered heavy losses. Sir Henry Lawrence was killed during one of the attacks. The British finally succeeded in recapturing Lucknow in March of 1858. Indian soldiers revolted at Danapur. Under the leadership of Kunwar Singh of Jagdishpur, they occupied Ara. Kunwar Singh set up his own administrative machinery in this building. When heavily armed British forces attacked his position, the Indian soldiers put up a valiant fight before retreating. Kunwar Singh thereafter defeated Colonel Milman's troops and occupied Azamgarh. On the 21st of May, the 37th Native Infantry revolted in Banaras. The unit was disbanded on the 4th of June. At Allahabad, Maulvi Liaquat Ali, a local schoolmaster, proclaimed himself the governor of the city at the instance of the people. Colonel Neil's regiment stormed Banaras and Allahabad and carried out indiscriminate shooting and hanging of Indian freedom fighters without regard to their age or sex. Within a few days, life was completely paralyzed in the crowded cities and surrounding villages. It is said that from every tree, bodies of Indian patriots were hanging, and every village within the reach of Colonel Neil was up in smoke. At Kanpur, the 1st and 56th Native Infantry took up arms against the British. They occupied the treasury on the 4th of June. They called on Nana Sahib of Bitur, who was camping at Nawabganj, to lead them in their battle against the British. The Indian troops advanced on to Kanpur under the leadership of Nana Sahib and his general, Tatia Tope. The British forces withdrew to an entrenchment. Nana's forces laid a siege which lasted for 20 days. On the 25th of June, Nana Sahib's advisor, Azimullah Khan, carried a letter to the besieged British forces promising safe passage to Allahabad if they surrendered. Wheeler's forces surrendered the next day. The British soldiers and their families embarked onto 40 boats. When the Indian boatmen left the boats to come ashore, due to a misunderstanding, some Englishmen opened fire on them. This led to the grim tragedy of the destruction of all the boats. A British column under Henry Havelock attacked Kanpur. Nana Sahib marched out with nearly 5,000 men and set up a strong defensive position at Fatehgarh on the Grand Trunk Road near Kanpur. When Havelock reoccupied Kanpur, Tatia Tope, one of the ablest generals of the War of Independence, did not take the defeat lying down. He raised troops in Gwalior and marched on to Kanpur on the 28th of November and again conquered the city. After beating back several counterattacks, Tatia Tope retreated to Kalpi on the 6th of December. Delhi remained free for several days. A British column from Meerut was sent to reoccupy the capital on the 5th of June. Indian soldiers, under the command of General Bakht Khan, fought them on the banks of the Hindan River. After 2 days of fierce fighting, the Indian sepoys retreated to a stronger defensive position at Badli Ki Sarai, a few miles outside Delhi. The British suffered heavy losses. There was a long stalemate. The British had the advantage of telegraphic communications, which ensured speedy movement of their troops. They were even able to get reinforcements from Britain. Massive reinforcements arrived from Punjab and other areas. The British troops launched a full-scale attack on Delhi on September the 14th. The Indian troops fought so bravely that the Commander-in-Chief of the British Army, General Sir James Outram, said, "There never was a bolder feat of arms." The battle continued for 7 long days. Finally, the British blasted the Kashmiri Gate with heavy artillery fire. After fighting for every house in every street, the British finally occupied the city on the 21st of September and let loose a reign of terror. When Major Hudson promised to spare the lives of his family, Bahadur Shah Zafar, who had taken shelter in Humayun's tomb, surrendered. Hudson arrested 2 of his sons and 1 grandson and personally shot them dead without a qualm. When Hudson asked the tortured Shahenshah, "Have you finished wiping the tears from your eyes?" Zafar replied, "Hudson, emperors do not weep." Bahadur Shah Zafar was exiled to Rangoon. He spent his last days praying for the freedom of his country. Before his death, the poet in him cried out,
दफन के लिए 2 गज जमीन भी न मिली कुएं यार में.
Indian troops at Jhansi revolted on the 5th of June 1857. At the people's request, Rani Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi assumed the responsibility of leading them. The Rani wrote to various rulers to unite in the fight against the foreigners. This is the fort at Jhansi, made famous by deeds of extreme courage. The stones of its walls and ramparts are impregnated with the blood of countless men and women who made the supreme sacrifice for the country's freedom. In March of 1858, British troops under General Hugh Rose attacked Jhansi. Under the inspiring leadership of Rani Lakshmi Bai, her troops offered gallant resistance. These guns under the command of Ghaus Khan never ceased firing. Even women were working on batteries and distributing ammunition. On the 4th of April 1858, when the situation became critical, the soldiers pleaded with Rani Lakshmi Bai to leave Jhansi. She left through this gate and joined the troops of Tatia Tope, the Nawab of Banda, Rao Sahib and others at Kalpi. The British attack on the Indian positions at Kalpi led to perhaps the fiercest battle in the fight for independence. Indian troops inflicted heavy casualties on the attacking forces. The Rani of Jhansi and Tatia Tope showed exceptional qualities of leadership. When their resources were exhausted, the Indian forces withdrew from the scene and in a brilliant move occupied the Gwalior fort. The Scindia's forces joined Tatia Tope and Rani Lakshmi Bai. The ruler fled to Agra. When the British forces advanced towards the city, the Rani of Jhansi boldly confronted them at Kota Ki Sarai. Rani Lakshmi Bai died fighting for the freedom of our country on the 17th of June 1858. General Hugh Rose paid her a rich tribute by calling her the best and bravest military leader of the rebels. Tatia Tope continued his fight against the British for several more months in guerrilla warfare. Finally, the deposed ruler of Narwar, Man Singh, who pretended to be a friend of Tatia, betrayed him. On April the 15th, 1859, Tatia Tope was tried by court-martial in this building at Shivpuri in the present-day Madhya Pradesh. On the 18th of April, he was hanged. A sad end to a brave life. In spite of the suffering and sacrifice of tens of thousands of men and women, the first war of independence did not succeed because of lack of organization and coordination, and because many Indian rulers helped the British for personal gain. Nevertheless, it was a war in which all religious barriers were overcome, a war which was to inspire generations of freedom fighters and martyrs, who made it possible for us to walk as free Indians today.
The world was at war. Gurudev Tagore spoke out in anguish.
The demon of barbarity has given up all pretense and has emerged with unconcealed fangs, ready to tear up humanity in an orgy of devastation. As I look around, I see the crumbling ruins of a proud civilization strewn like a vast heap of futility. The wheels of fate will someday compel the English to give up their Indian empire. But what kind of India will they leave behind? What stark misery, what a waste of mud and filth they will leave behind.
Thus wrote the Nobel laureate before his death in August 1941. By the year 1942, there was imminent danger to India's eastern frontiers. The Congress asked the British to grant freedom so that India too could participate in the war against fascism as an equal partner. When the British rejected the demand, the Quit India resolution was passed at Bombay on the 8th of August 1942. In the early hours of 9th August, all the Congress leaders were arrested and whisked away in a special train. Mahatma Gandhi was interned at the Aga Khan Palace, Pune. All the members of the working committee were sent to Chand Bibi's fort at Ahmednagar. Maulana Azad, Jawaharlal Nehru, Syed Mahmood, Govind Ballabh Pant, P.C. Ghosh, Patabhi Sitaramaiah, Asraf Ali, Acharya Narendra Dev, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Shankar Rao Dev, Acharya Kripalani, and Hare Krishna Mehtab. The news of the arrest of the leaders spread like wildfire. There were spontaneous demonstrations and protest meetings all over the country. A spirit of rebellion and a determination to put an end to the tyranny of British rule motivated the masses into open defiance. Mills and factories went on an indefinite strike in Bombay, Ahmedabad, Madras, Kanpur and various other provinces. The streets wore a deserted look. Students stayed away from classes all over the country. At Patna, 7 students were killed while trying to hoist the national flag on the Secretariat. The movement was particularly successful in Bombay, Bengal, Madras, Delhi, the central provinces and Uttar Pradesh. The Congress party was declared unlawful and its offices seized. The rulers violated every canon of decency. In the name of law and order, the police indulged in merciless repression. Professor N.G. Ranga says,
But we were not prepared to cooperate either with the Japanese or with the British or with the Nazis or anybody. We only wanted freedom for our country. We also wanted the abolition or the destruction of fascism and Nazism. But that does not mean that we were going to give any kind of a quota to the British imperialists.
Veteran freedom fighter Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay recalls.
The movement itself was generated and carried on to progress by the people themselves.
Jayaprakash Narayan escaped from jail and organized underground resistance along with Ram Manohar Lohia, Achyut Patwardhan, Sucheta Kripalani, Aruna Asaf Ali and others. Mrs. Aruna Asaf Ali says,
वो एक इनकलाब था, एक जोश ऐसा था, मैं क्या कहूँ, हम हथियारबंद तो लोग थे नहीं उस वक्त, निहत्थे थे, मगर फिर भी जिस तरह से लोगों ने पुलिस का मुकाबला किया, फौज का मुकाबला किया, उसका बयान करना बहुत मुश्किल है। मगर इतना कहना चाहती हूँ कि हिंदुस्तान की औरतें और मर्द तय कर चुके थे, ये जो आग सुलगी है अब हम इसमें झुलस जाएंगे, मगर हम आजादी लेकर ही हटेंगे। और गांधी जी ने भी अपने संदेश में यही कहा, डू और डाई।
The movement was kept going by the underground workers and by a few members of the All India Congress Committee who were still free. They chalked out a plan to intensify the struggle. There were 5 guidelines. The peasantry should refuse to pay the land tax. They should not sell food grains and cattle to the government. They should not accept paper money. They should organize Swarajya Panchayats and boycott revenue and police officials. Roads, telegraph and railway lines to be destroyed to interrupt movement of British troops. Tens of thousands were arrested. The police and the army fired on unarmed people. The British admitted that 1,028 persons were killed and 3,200 injured. But according to the Congress sources, over 25,000 were killed. As government censorship deprived the masses of factual news about the freedom movement, in Bombay, Vittal Bhai Zaveri, Usha Mehta and their associates established underground radio stations to broadcast news about the freedom movement. Usha Mehta recollects.
When Mahatma Gandhi gave the call to do or die, we, a young group of students and businessmen, began to think as to how best we could contribute to the struggle that was launched by Bapu. We felt that the best way to do this will be to have a broadcasting station of our own, from where we could reach Gandhi's message to every nook and corner of the country, as also keep the people informed about the progress of our unique movement.
Congress radio calling. On the 8th of August, Mahatma Gandhi proclaimed his faith in his people.
We also broadcast speeches of Jayaprakash Narayan, Achyut Patwardhan and Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia.
On their arrest, Gandhiji and the national leaders left their people nothing. No plant program, no money, no organization, no leadership, nothing except the great idea of freedom and the magic formula to do.
In many parts of the country, the people set up a parallel administration. In Bengal, people like Bharat Kant Kwiti and Satish Chandra Sahu set up a national government at Tamluk, Midnapur district. Birendranath Maji carried the national flag alongside the immortal Matangini Hazra. Matangini fell to bullets. In Satara, Maharashtra, Anantakumar Berde and Natha Lad organized the Patri Sarkar a parallel government. Leelabai Patil escaped from prison and joined the parallel government. Appa Master organized his Tufan Sena. In Orissa, a national militia asked the British to hand over the administration to the Kisan Mazdoor Raj. Rama Devi Gopa Bandhu Chaudhary and a host of others rebelled and set up Panchayati Raj. In the United Provinces, the national flag was hoisted on almost all the police stations of Ghazipur district. British administration was paralyzed in Azamgarh, Balia and in several other districts. In Assam, 15-year-old Ratna Phukan and Kanaklata braved heavy police firing to keep the national flag flying. Kanaklata paid the supreme price. In the Madras province, the railway line between Renigunta and Bezawada was uprooted. Mr. M.P. Shivanyanam, Tamil Nadu, says,
ஆகஸ்ட் கிளர்ச்சி எப்படி நடத்துவதென்று ரகசியமாக ஒரு சுற்றறிக்கை அகில இந்திய காங்கிரஸ் கமிட்டியிலிருந்து அனுப்பப்பட்டு சென்னை ஜில்லா காங்கிரஸ் கமிட்டியின் செயலாளர் அந்த என் கைக்கும் வந்தது. அந்த சுற்றறிக்கையில் குறிப்பிட்டிருந்தபடி கோவையிலே தொழிலாளர்கள் வேலை நிறுத்தம்.
Riots broke out in many parts of Tamil Nadu and a large number of leaders of the south were arrested.
பூட்டை உடைத்து வெளியே கொண்டு வந்தனர் புரட்சி உள்ளம் படைத்த மகாஜனங்கள். சென்னை மாகாணத்திலிருந்து டி பிரகாசம், என் சஞ்சீவ ரெட்டி, வி கிரி, அனந்தசயனம் ஐயங்கார் ஆகியோரும், தமிழ்நாட்டிலிருந்து சத்தியமூர்த்தி ஐயர், முதுரங்க முதலியார், பக்தவத்சல முதலியார், நான், ராஜாராம் நாயுடு, காமராஜ் நாடார், வேலூர் குப்புசாமி முதலியார், திருவண்ணாமலை அண்ணாமலை பிள்ளை ஆகியோரும், கேரளத்தில் குருவாயூர் கேளப்பன், மாதவ மேனன், ராகவ மேனன் ஆகியோரும் வேலூர் சிறையிலிருந்து வடக்கே உள்ள மத்திய மாகாணத்தில் உள்ள அமராவதி சிறைக்கு கொண்டு செல்லப்பட்டனர்.
Jayaprakash Narayan deplored the role of the rich and the princely class who proved to be exceedingly selfish. The Communist Party of India stayed away from the Quit India movement and supported the British war efforts. Jawaharlal Nehru, while a prisoner in Ahmednagar fort, spent his time writing his epic, The Discovery of India. He writes,
And now it is a curious turn of fate's wheel that I, and the people like me, should spend our days in prison while war against fascism and Nazism is raging. Those who used to bow to Hitler and Mussolini, approve of Japanese aggression in China, should hold aloft the banner of freedom and democracy and anti-fascism.
The Secretary of State for India alleged that under Gandhiji's inspiration, the Congress had become a revolutionary party. Since the Mahatma's absolute faith in truth and non-violence had been questioned, he decided to go on a self-purification fast from the 10th of February 1943. All the political parties and communities except the Muslim League appealed to the government to release Gandhiji unconditionally. When the appeal was ignored, Mr. M.S. Ani, Mr. N.R. Sarkar and Sir Homi Modi resigned from the Viceroy's Executive Council. Gandhiji broke the fast on the 3rd of March. Rajagopalachari tried to find a solution to the communal problems by drawing up a formula for the partition of India as a basis for a settlement with the Muslim League. In February 1943, he visited Gandhiji in jail and discussed the plan with him. He then showed the plan to Jinnah and asked him to adopt a more realistic basis for the partition of India. Jinnah turned it down, saying it was a shadow and a husk, a maimed, mutilated and moth-eaten Pakistan. Meanwhile, on the 8th of February 1943, Subhash Bose left Kiel in Germany on a long voyage by submarine for Japan. After reaching Tokyo on the 13th of June 1943, he announced his determination to launch an armed attack against the British Empire. Subhash Bose reached Singapore on the 2nd of July 1943. He was welcomed by Rash Bihari Bose. The leadership of the Indian Independence League and the Indian National Army was transferred to Netaji. He became the head of the Azad Hind government in exile and the supreme commander of the Indian National Army.
Jai Hind! Jai Hind! Jai Hind! Jai Hind!
I am over.
हम जिंदा रहेंगे या तो मरेंगे, कोई बात नहीं है। बात सही बात यह है, अहम बात यह है, आखिर में हमारी कामयाबी होगी, हिंदुस्तान आजाद होगा।
After intensive training, the Indian National Army went into action against the British forces in the Arakans and on the Imphal front. They occupied Moirang Kangla in Manipur. In 1943, Bengal suffered the worst famine in India's history. Describing the plight of the people, Jawaharlal Nehru has written,
Famine came, ghastly, staggering, horrible beyond words. Men and women and little children died in their thousands daily for lack of food. Men were dying all over the world and killing each other in battle. Death was common enough everywhere. But here, death had no purpose, no logic, no necessity. It was the result of man's incompetence and callousness. False reports were issued by those in authority in India and England. But corpses cannot easily be overlooked. They come in the way. Help came from various sources, but too late. Several millions of lives had already been lost.
In November 1943, the government of Japan transferred the territory of Andaman and Nicobar Islands to the Azad Hind government. At the cellular jail in Port Blair, Netaji paid homage to the martyrs and unfurled the flag of free India. Aga Khan Palace, Pune was the scene of a personal tragedy for the Mahatma. On the 9th of February 1944, Kasturba Gandhi died after a brief illness, thus ending their 62 years of companionship. Gandhiji said, "I can't imagine living without Ba." 2 months later, Gandhiji suffered a bout of malaria. In May 1944, he was released on medical grounds. While recuperating in Bombay, Mahatma Gandhi wrote to the Viceroy that if a declaration of immediate independence was made, he was willing to advise the Working Committee to give up civil disobedience and offer full cooperation to the government in its war effort. The offer was not accepted. Gandhiji met Jinnah several times between the 9th and 27th of September 1944 to find a solution to the communal problems and the future political setup in the country. Gandhiji rejected the view that the Indian Muslims constituted a separate nation. He said that a separate Muslim state could be considered, if the people wanted, only after India became free. Jinnah wanted an immediate and complete settlement. The talks failed. For Gandhiji, it was a momentary setback. He still hoped to find a solution.
The interim government started functioning in right earnestness. Jawaharlal Nehru said, "For long have we been passive spectators of events, the playthings of others. The initiative has come to our people now, and we shall make the history of our choice." Every evening, the interim cabinet met without the Viceroy and took independent decisions on several major issues. Jawaharlal Nehru was perturbed by the communal violence in Bengal and said, "I have come seriously to think whether it has served any useful purpose for me to head the interim government if an important part of India sinks to barbarism." The Direct Action Day declared by the Muslim League had led to riots in Bengal, Bombay, Bihar and Punjab. Mahatma Gandhi lamented, "We are not yet in the midst of a civil war, but we are near it." He said, "The independence of India is at stake because of Bengal and Bihar." The northwest frontier province of India, a predominantly Muslim area, had given a massive mandate to the Congress in the assembly elections. When Jawaharlal Nehru visited the frontier province, the Muslim League organized anti-Congress demonstrations. In spite of the Muslim League instigated hooliganism, Jawaharlal Nehru was able to complete his tour of the province. Five members of the Muslim League, headed by Liaquat Ali Khan, joined the interim government on the 15th of October 1946. The League ministers broke the convention of collective responsibility and started working as a separate bloc within the cabinet. Communal violence erupted in East Bengal in the most virulent form. Answering the call of distress of the suffering humanity, Mahatma Gandhi visited the worst affected areas of Noakhali. For 4 months, the Pilgrim of Peace walked from village to village and from door to door. At Srirampur, Jawaharlal Nehru came to seek his advice. The lone crusader succeeded in cementing the broken ties of brotherhood and in establishing peace. The Secretary of State for India invited Jawaharlal Nehru, Jinnah, Baldev Singh, Liaquat Ali Khan and the Viceroy to London with the hope of bringing about an agreement between the main political parties. Interpretation of Para 19 of the Cabinet Plan, dealing with proportionate representation in the assemblies, became a stumbling block. There was no agreement. On the 6th of December 1946, the British government issued a clarification, but the Congress President found it at variance with the statement of May the 16th, 1946. The newly elected Constituent Assembly met in New Delhi on the 9th of December 1946. Jinnah called it a blunder and asked the League members to boycott the session. Some Congress members demanded the resignation of League ministers from the interim government if the party did not join the Assembly. Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected the President of the Constituent Assembly. Jawaharlal Nehru moved the objective resolution which said, "This Constituent Assembly declares its firm, solemn resolve to proclaim India as an independent sovereign republic and draw up a constitution for her future governance." But political progress was hampered by Jinnah's attitude. The League instigated communal violence was costing lives. In order to defuse the mounting crisis, Prime Minister Attlee announced on February the 20th, 1947, the British government's definite intention to effect the transfer of power to responsible Indian hands by June 1948. He also announced that Lord Mountbatten would replace Lord Wavell as the new Viceroy of India. With the exception of the Muslim League and the Anglo-Indians, all the parties welcomed the announcement. Gandhiji was beckoned to Bihar in March 1947. The land of Gautam Buddha, the land of enlightenment, was now drenched in the blood of the innocent victims of communal fanaticism. Gandhiji said, "The cry of blood for blood was barbarous." The frontier Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, was his constant companion. The two Gandhis helped restore peace and provide the healing touch. On the 24th of March 1947, Lord Louis Mountbatten was sworn in as the last Viceroy of India. His assignment was to transfer the responsibility of the government of British India to Indian hands in a manner that will ensure the future happiness and prosperity of her people. On the invitation of Lord Mountbatten, Mahatma Gandhi came to Delhi on the 31st of March 1947. The Mahatma told the Viceroy that he was totally opposed to any division of India. India was now definitely moving towards freedom. She was also influencing the destiny of the people of Asia. In March 1947, the Congress invited representatives of 22 nations to New Delhi for the first ever Asian Relations Conference. It was attended by over 250 delegates. Sarojini Naidu presided over the conference. It was inaugurated by Jawaharlal Nehru.
Friends and fellow Asians, we have arrived at a stage in human affairs when the ideal of that one world and some kind of a world federation seems to be essential. We should work for that ideal and not for any grouping which comes in the way of this larger world group. But in order to have one world, we must also in Asia think of the countries of Asia cooperating together for that larger ideal.
And now I am going to request the father of our nation, the apostle of love and truth and non-violence, to give us his benediction.
Madam President and friends, West today is despairing of multiplication of atom bombs, because a multiplication of atom bombs means utter destruction, not merely of the West, but it will be a destruction of the world. If you want to give a message again to the West, it must be a message of love.
The conference was the beginning of the end of colonial rule in Asia. Mountbatten held a series of talks with the Indian leaders individually and collectively. The whole of India watched and waited with hope and anticipation. During several days of discussions, efforts were made to maintain the unity of India, but the Muslim League refused to agree to any plan other than the partition of India. Baffled by the growing communal disturbances, Mountbatten prepared a hurried plan and sent it to London with Lord Ismay. It was proposed to transfer the power to the provincial governments, leaving them to come together to form a central government if and when they chose to do so. Princely states would be free to make their own arrangements. Jawaharlal Nehru turned down the plan vehemently, as it would have completely destroyed the unity of the country for all times to come. On the 2nd of June, Lord Mountbatten had a meeting with Jawaharlal Nehru, Patel, Acharya Kripalani, Jinnah, Liaquat Ali Khan, Abdur Rab Nishtar and Sardar Baldev Singh. He placed before them a new plan for ascertaining the wishes of the people of India concerning their future constitutional arrangements. The plan was, the work of the existing Constituent Assembly would not be interrupted, but the constitution framed by the Assembly would not apply to those parts of India which were unwilling to accept it. The wishes of the people of different parts of the country would be ascertained either through the existing Constituent Assembly or through separate Constituent Assemblies of the representatives of the dissident parts. In Punjab and Bengal, the assemblies would be divided into two sections, representing the Muslim and non-Muslim majority districts. If they opted for the partition of the provinces, each section could join the assembly of its choice. In the Northwest Frontier Province and the Sylhet district in Assam, choice would be exercised through a referendum. The British government would cease to exercise the powers of paramountcy over the princely states. It would be open to the states to enter into political relations with the successor governments. Mountbatten asked the leaders to send him the views by midnight the same day. The Congress Working Committee sent its acceptance in writing the same night. Jinnah was reluctant to commit himself. Around midnight, the Viceroy told him that if he did not accept the plan, it would be the end of his Pakistan dream. An emergency meeting of the All India Congress Committee was convened to ratify the decision. As widespread communal riots were causing untold misery, the Congress was left with no alternative but to accept the division of India. The resolution on the partition of India was approved by 157 votes to 29. Gandhiji said, "Let posterity know that Gandhi was not a party to India's vivisection." The frontier Gandhi, Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, broke down and said, "You have thrown us to the wolves." The Indian Independence Bill was passed by the House of Commons on the 15th of July. It received the royal assent on the 18th of July. The act said, "Two independent dominions, known respectively as India and Pakistan, shall be set up as from the 15th day of August 1947. Two boundary commissions were appointed under Lord Radcliffe to work out the partition of the provinces of Punjab and Bengal. A referendum was held in the Northwest Frontier Province and in the Sylhet district of Assam. Khudai Khidmat Guards boycotted the referendum in the Northwest Frontier Province. This was unfortunate because only the pro-Muslim League voters were in the field and the Northwest Frontier Province went to Pakistan. Sylhet, Sindh and Baluchistan joined Pakistan. On the 22nd of July 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru moved a resolution on the national flag in the Constituent Assembly of India.
Resolved that the national flag of India shall be a horizontal tricolor of deep saffron, kesari, white and dark green in equal proportion. In the center of the white band, there shall be a wheel in navy blue to represent the charkha. The design of the wheel shall be that of the wheel chakra which appears on the basis of the capital of Ashoka.
After centuries of foreign rule, freedom was at our doorstep. But the followers of the Muslim League indulged in large-scale killings, looting and burning in Lahore, Gujranwala, Rawalpindi, Lialpur and many other towns and villages of Punjab, Sindh and Bengal. There were repercussions in several parts of India. Tens of thousands perished and millions became homeless. Overnight, millions became refugees. Once again, Calcutta was the scene of communal discord. The Mahatma returned to the city. He held no office, but the governor, the army commanders and the Premier of Bengal depended on Gandhiji's power over the masses to bring peace. Gandhiji undertook a fast to make the people realize the futility of communal hatred. The people of Calcutta once again listened to Gandhiji's advice. Dignity and brotherhood of man was restored. New Delhi, on the midnight of the 14th and 15th of August. The Constituent Assembly met at a special session under the presidentship of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. Jawaharlal Nehru moved the independence resolution.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge, not wholly or in full measure, but very substantially. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. It is fitting that at this solemn moment we take the pledge of dedication to the service of India and her people and to the still larger cause of humanity.
Dr. Radhakrishnan seconded the motion.
History and legend will go round this day. It marks a milestone in our democracy's march. Here in this land, under the leadership of one who will go down in history as perhaps the greatest man of our age, we have opposed patience to fury, quietness of spirit to bureaucratic tyranny. With what result? That the transition is being effected in such an orderly and dignified way.
The Constituent Assembly appointed Lord Mountbatten the first Governor-General of the Dominion of India. On August 15th, the Governor-General administered the oath of office to the first Cabinet of Independent India, headed by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Lord Mountbatten then drove in state to the Constituent Assembly. The Governor General read out the King's message.
I have a message from His Majesty the King to deliver to you today. This is His Majesty's message. On this historic day, when India takes her place as a free and independent dominion in the British Commonwealth of Nations, I send you all my greetings and heartfelt wishes. Freedom-loving people everywhere will wish to share in your celebrations. At this historic moment, let us not forget all that India owes to Mahatma Gandhi.
The Independence Day was celebrated with great enthusiasm all over the country. Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, and in fact in every town and village. The Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru unfurled the tricolour on the ramparts of the historic Red Fort. Jawaharlal Nehru said, "To India, our much-loved motherland, the ancient, the eternal, and the ever-new, we pay our reverent homage, and we bind ourselves afresh to her service."
अमृतसर शहर सिख गुरुओं की धरती है, जिसे गुरु रामदास जी ने बसाया था। अमृतसर व्यापार का बड़ा केंद्र था। यहां हमेशा व्यापारियों का जमघट लगा रहता था। हिंदू, मुसलमान, सिख सभी मिलजुल कर रहते थे। इसे गंगा जमनी तहजीब का प्रतीक कह सकते हैं। इस पवित्र शहर में शुक्राने की अरदास होती थी। यहीं पास में ही है जलियांवाला बाग।
On both the sides, the government should take a lesson from this particular incident as to what happens if you do not listen to the voice of the people in democratic setup. So it is an incident which deserves an apology.
जलियांवाला बाग, यह हत्याकांड उस वक्त के पंजाब के गवर्नर सर माइकल एडवर्ड की सोच का नतीजा है।
हमने उसका नाम रखा हुआ है बूचड़। जो ऐसे बूचड़ इसका करता है, कत्लेआम करता है, ऐसे ही आकर उसने जलियांवाला बाग के अंदर बिना किसी को नोटिस किए हुए, बिना कोई इन्फॉर्म किए हुए गोलियां चलानी शुरू कर दी। और लोग वहाँ से भागे, कोई इधर भाग रहा है, कोई उधर भाग रहा है। और वहाँ एक कुआं है जलियांवाला बाग में, कुएं में भी जाकर सैकड़ों आदमियों ने छलांगे मार दी। मेरे दादाजी जो कि अपने साथ कोई कम से कम 30 आदमियों का लेकर जत्था गए हुए थे, क्योंकि वहाँ पे उनको रॉलेट एक्ट के विरोध में बोलना था।
हमारे यहाँ अमृतसर जलियांवाला बाग में जो हत्याएं हुई है, बूढ़े जवान बच्चे नेत्रों पे जो गोलियां चली हैं, वो दर्द आज भी हमसे सह नहीं हुआ।
2 वर्ष पहले यानी 1917 में पंजाब के सरदार अजीत सिंह ने एक मूवमेंट शुरू की थी और वो इतना व्यापक आंदोलन बन चुका था कि अंग्रेज उसको 1857 के गदर के बराबर समझने लग गए थे। अंग्रेजों ने इसका मुकाबला करने के लिए डिफेंस ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट पास किया। उसमें सिर्फ इतना प्रावधान था कि वो प्रथम विश्व युद्ध की समाप्ति के 6 महीने बाद तक ही लागू रह सकता था।
लेकिन अंग्रेजों को चिंता थी कि उसके बाद फिर क्या होगा। उन्होंने एक कमेटी बनाई जिसके प्रेसिडेंट जस्टिस रॉलेट थे, जिसका नाम ही रॉलेट एक्ट पड़ गया।
रॉलेट एक्ट की धाराएं बहुत सख्त थीं। उसमें ऐसा प्रावधान किया गया था जिसमें न दलील, न वकील, न अपील, यानी जो चाहे सरकार कर सकती थी, करवा सकती थी। जब गांधी जी ने रॉलेट एक्ट का विरोध किया तो उसके फलस्वरूप पंजाब के बहुत सारे लोग इकट्ठे हुए, बहुत जगह हड़ताल हुई और उसमें डॉक्टर सैफुद्दीन किचलू और डॉक्टर सत्यपाल, इन दोनों को गिरफ्तार कर लिया गया। इसके खिलाफ लोगों ने धरने देने शुरू कर दिए। 10 तारीख की सुबह 10 बजे डिप्टी कमिश्नर ने दोनों को बुलाया। इन दोनों को ही अपनी कोठी पर बुलाने के बाद वहीं गिरफ्तार करके धर्मशाला के लिए रवाना कर दिया। अब सब लोग इकट्ठे हो गए। डिप्टी कमिश्नर की कोठी की तरफ जाना चाहा, लेकिन पुलिस ने रोक दिया और उस मूवमेंट को रोकने के लिए फायरिंग हुई, जिसमें 20 लोग मारे जाते हैं। बिना किसी कारण अपने लीडरों का पता करने गए लोगों को मार दिया गया। इसके खिलाफ सभी लोग इकट्ठे होकर एक चेतावनी देना चाहते थे। अगले दिन शहर में मार्शल लॉ लागू कर दिया जाता है। जनरल डायर अमृतसर में बुला लिया जाता है और जिस किस्म के कानून लागू किए जाते हैं कि 4 आदमियों से ज्यादा लोग इकट्ठे नहीं हो सकते, कोई जलसा नहीं हो सकता, लोगों ने इसे अपनी बेइज्जती माना। लोगों ने 13 अप्रैल को एक सभा बुलाने का निश्चय किया और जब इकट्ठे हुए जलियांवाला बाग में अंग्रेजी हुकूमत ने बिना चेतावनी दिए फायरिंग की। इस फायरिंग में 1650 राउंड गोलियां चलाई गईं और लगातार 10 मिनट तक गोलियां चलती रहीं।
अफसर आला ने आज हमको दी है धमकियां कि बाजू काट देंगे हम, परों को नोच लेंगे हम, पर हर खिजा के बाद मौसम बहार लाजिम है हजूर, खुद ब खुद निकल आएंगे पर तब और गूंज खिल उठेंगे। तो ये जब नज़म पढ़ रहे थे, मेरी परदादी बताते हैं कि जब ये नज़म पढ़ी जा रही थी तभी ये गोली कांड हुआ।
जलियांवाला बाग चारों तरफ से 4 दीवारी से घिरा हुआ है। लोग कहीं भी भागकर नहीं जा सकते थे। नतीजा ये हुआ कि 379 लोग मारे गए और करीब 1200 लोग जख्मी हुए।
आज़ादी के लिए इतना वो उतावले थे कि जान चली जाए। दादाजी को पता था कि आज गोली चल जानी है। उन्होंने उन लड़कों को कहा भी है कि आप चल जाओ, यहाँ पर गोली चल जानी है। मेरे पिताजी मुझे बताते हैं कि उन्होंने उस वक्त माजमी लिबास पहना हुआ था। वो कहते हैं कि वो करीबन स्टेज पर बैठे हुए थे देहाती लीडर से, लोग जानते थे अच्छी तरह से उनको, देहाती लीडर से, और उनको इतनी गोलियां लगी कि उनका जो शरीर था ना इतना खिलर गया था कि उनकी लाश ही उठाई नहीं जा सकती थी। ये बात मैं नहीं कह रहा, ये ब्रिटिश जो रिकॉर्ड है उसमें लिखी हुआ है कि उनकी लाश का संस्कार भी वहाँ पर जलियांवाला बाग में हुआ है।
आज शहीदों की याद में आंखें नम हो जाती हैं। अमेरिकन शिल्पकार बेंजामिन पोल्क ने इनकी स्मृति को अपनी कला द्वारा इस प्रकार उजागर किया है। जनरल डायर यही चाहते थे कि मैं इन भारतीयों को ऐसा सबक सिखाऊं कि कभी भी इनमें हिम्मत न हो कि ये सरकार के किसी भी फैसले को, किसी आदेश को न माने।
हमारे दादाजी वो जलियांवाला बाग में जनरल डायर के अगेंस्ट नारेबाजी की और एक गोली उनकी छाती पे लगी तो दादाजी वहाँ पर उसी दिन शहीद हो गए।
कांड इतना बड़ा था और किलिंग्स इतनी ज़्यादा थी कि नेशन को झंझोल के रख दिया।
इस नरसंहार के विरोध में लोगों में देश प्रेम की ज्वाला भड़क उठी। हिंदू, मुस्लिम, सिख, ईसाई सभी लोग एक साथ स्वाधीनता संग्राम के आंदोलन में कूद पड़े। सभी लोगों ने प्रचंड प्रतिज्ञा की कि इस ब्रिटिश राज को उखाड़ फेंकना है। इस आंदोलन की सबसे बड़ी एकता यही थी।
ये जो एकता थी, फिरकू एकता, ये सबसे बड़ी प्राप्ति रही इस आंदोलन की और इस घटना की।
उधम सिंह इसी मूवमेंट की वजह से पैदा हुआ, जिसने जाके बहुत देर के बाद इंग्लैंड में जाके जनरल जो पंजाब के गवर्नर थे उसके ऊपर कातलाना हमला करके उसको मारा।
शहीद उधम सिंह जी ने जो बदला लिया सरदारों को और देश का नाम ऊंचा किया उन्होंने, आज भी हमारे ऊपर कोई आएगा वैसे कई शहीद उधम सिंह पैदा हो जाएंगे।
आज भी जब जलियांवाला बाग की मिट्टी पे जब हम पैर रखते हैं तो उन बच्चों की चीखें सुनाई देती हैं। किताबों में पढ़ के या यहाँ आके उन वृद्ध जनों की आंखों से जो आंसू निकले वो आज भी दिल में टपकते हैं। और उन जवानों के जो सपने थे वो आज भी खिलते हैं। काश हम कुछ कर सकते, लेकिन आज 100 साल बाद हम उन वीर जवानों को श्रद्धांजलि देने के अलावा कुछ नहीं कर सकते और बस ये दुआ कर सकते हैं कि ऐसा कभी फिर ना हो।
उस जलियांवाले बाग में आज भी हमारा खून वैसे ही खोल जाता है जैसे 100 साल पहले खोला था।
ये एक बहुत ही भयानक त्रासदी थी, एक ऐसा नरसंहार जिसने पूरे राष्ट्र को झकझोर कर रख दिया, जिससे ब्रिटिश हुकूमत के वहशीपन तथा दमनकारी नीतियों के खिलाफ पूरे देश में आंदोलन में और तीव्रता आई। इस घटना के कारण स्वाधीनता सेनानियों तथा देशवासियों को एक नया जोश मिला, नया जुनून पैदा हुआ, नए खून का संचार हुआ। नया जज्बा लेकर सभी लोगों ने अनंत ऊर्जा के साथ लड़ते हुए आजादी ले ही ली और आज भारत प्रगति के पथ पर चल रहा है। స్వాతంత్రమంటే విముక్తి కోసం ఒక జాతి ఎత్తిపట్టే స్వేచ్ఛా పతాకం, పరాయి పాలన వద్దని నినదించే ఆత్మగౌరవ గీతం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే చీకట్ల నుంచి వెలుగుల వైపు సాగే విజయ ప్రస్థానం, ఆకలి మంటలు లేని సమాజ నిర్మాణం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే జీవోత్సవంలా మార్చి శాపం నుంచి విముక్తి కల్పించడం, నీటి బొట్టుని ఒడిసి పట్టి జీవనదిగా మార్చడం, సంక్షుభిత సాగును సంబరంగా మార్చి రైతును రాజు చేయడం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే మాతృత్వపు మాధుర్యాన్ని మర్చిపోలేని జ్ఞాపకంగా మార్చడం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే శ్రమజీవుల ముఖాలపై చిరునవ్వుల్ని పూయించడం, వెనుకబాటుతనం లేని వ్యక్తిత్వాల్ని నిర్మించడం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే ఆకాశాన్ని జయించే ఆత్మవిశ్వాసాలను తయారు చేయడం, రేపటి తరం కలల్ని నిజం చేయడం, హరిత ఉషోదయాలతో భవిష్యత్తుకు భరోసా కల్పించడం. స్వాతంత్రమంటే సమానత్వానికి సంఘీభావాన్ని ప్రకటించడం, రాగద్వేషాలు లేని రాజనీతిజ్ఞతకు పట్టం కట్టడం. 75 ఏళ్ల స్వేచ్ఛా భారతంలో నిజమైన స్వాతంత్ర స్ఫూర్తిని చాటుతున్న సముజ్వల తెలంగాణ. అందరికీ స్వతంత్ర దినోత్సవ శుభాకాంక్షలు. జై తెలంగాణ, జై భారత్.
When the spirit of a nation long suppressed arises in revolt, it is to assert a people's right to freedom, a flashpoint which marks the beginning of a national movement. Since earliest times, India was a country open to all cultures, and yet throughout the ages, she has maintained her essential identity and basic unity. As Jawaharlal Nehru has said, the past of India, with all its cultural variety and greatness, was a common heritage of all the Indian people, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian and others. It was in this spirit of tolerance that early in the 17th century, the British East India Company received permission from the Mughal Emperor to start a factory at Surat. By 1690, the British had gained a number of footholds in India, and their business had prospered because, as Brooke Adams puts it, possibly since the world began, no investment has ever yielded the profit reaped from Indian plunder. From these bridgeheads, the British started to spread inland through military conquest. And by the middle of the 19th century, they had occupied nearly 3/5 of India. The British compelled the rulers of many Indian states to conclude unequal treaties and made the rulers ineffective. They introduced the insidious doctrine of lapse. Whenever a ruler died without leaving a direct heir, the state was annexed by the British. By a series of annexations, they took over states such as Satara, Jhansi, Nagpur and many more. Along with political expansion, there was legalized exploitation of the Indian masses, and the word loot became part of the English language. Soon Indian industries were destroyed. The craftsmen whose products once adorned the courts of Rome and Pompeii lost their means of livelihood. As Jawaharlal Nehru noted, British policy deliberately disintegrated the whole economic and structural basis of Indian society. Artisans and craftsmen were forced back to the villages, and even there, in the words of Lord Bentinck, the misery hardly finds a parallel in the history of commerce. The bones of the cotton weavers were bleaching the plains of India. At such a moment in history, the people of India were in turmoil and decided to fight the British. The British were not only enslaving the people of India, but were a threat to the cultural and religious life of her people. The chapati was used as a means of secret communication to spread the message of simmering discontent and to prepare the people for a revolution. At this time, Nana Sahib of Bithur was traveling to various capitals to seek help in organizing a united front against the British. In 1857, the British introduced cartridges greased with animal fat. These had to be bitten before loading the gunpowder. Since the sepoys were not told what type of fat it was, many refused to accept the cartridges on religious grounds. When the 19th Regiment stationed at Barrackpore near Calcutta refused to accept the cartridges, the unit was disbanded. The sepoys resented the high-handedness of the British authorities. According to British Army records, on the 29th of March 1857, Mangal Pandey, a sepoy with 7 years' service in the 34th Regiment, moved up and down near the quarter guard and asked his comrades to defy the British.
जब हमारे मुसलमान भाई पूछते हैं, ये कहते हैं स्वर की चर्बी नहीं है, मैं पूछता हूं आखिर किसकी चर्बी है? ये फिरंगी हम लोगों में फूट डालना चाहते हैं, हमारे धर्म और तहजीब को नष्ट करना चाहते हैं.
A British sergeant major rushed to the scene. He ordered Mangal Pandey to stop and asked Ishwari Pandey, an officer on duty, to arrest him. They ignored him. Mangal Pandey said, "This is the time to strike."
हम लोग अब पीछे नहीं हट सकते. निकलो बाहर और इनको निकालें. निकलो भाइयों, हमारे साथ इनको निकालने के लिए.
A British lieutenant charged forward on his horse. Mangal Pandey shot the horse from under the officer. The colonel of the regiment ordered Mangal Pandey to be arrested. The soldiers disobeyed him. Pandey turned his gun on himself and fired. He was wounded. Mangal Pandey was arrested. After a court-martial, he was hanged. The news of Mangal Pandey's martyrdom travelled swiftly to various parts of the country. At Meerut, 85 out of 90 sawars of the 3rd Cavalry refused to accept the greased cartridges. They were disarmed and sent to prison. The Indian soldiers were furious at this insult to their comrades. On Sunday, the 10th of May, British soldiers and officers were attending church. Sepoys of the 3rd Cavalry seized weapons from guard rooms and stormed the jail to release their comrades. They attacked their British officers and burnt their houses. The sepoys of the 14th and 20th Regiment joined them. The revolutionaries then marched to Delhi. On the way, a large number of villagers joined them. They reached the Red Fort on the 11th of May 1857. The last of the Mughal kings, Bahadur Shah Zafar, was proclaimed Emperor of India.
मेरे हिंदू और मुसलमान भाइयों, आज हमने जो एक दूसरे का हाथ थामा है, वो हमारे फर्ज का तकाजा है. मेरी दिली ख्वाहिश है कि फिरंगियों को हिंदुस्तान से बाहर निकाल दिया जाए, चाहे इसके लिए हमें कितनी ही कीमत क्यों न अदा करनी पड़े. ये बात न भूलो कि परवरदिगार की नेमतों में सबसे बड़ी नेमत आजादी है. आजादी.
On hearing this call, more sepoys from Meerut and other places flocked to Delhi. The occupation of Delhi by Indian soldiers was a tremendous